Okay, in the last video, I already explained Ruan Mei's build. Now, I will explain the best build for Dr. Ratio. First, I'm going to explain his kit. Dr. Ratio is a 5-star imaginary hunt unit. His basic attack deals 50% of Dr. Ratio's attack to a single enemy. His skill deals 75% of Dr. Ratio's attack to a single enemy. His ultimate deals 144% of his attack to a single enemy and applies Wiseman's Folly. When allies attack an enemy affected by Wiseman's Folly, Dr. Ratio launch a talent's follow-up attack. This effect can be triggered a maximum of 2 times. After using his ultimate, his trigger count for follow-up attacks is reset. His talent has 40% fixed chance to launch a follow-up attack for 1 time and deal imaginary damage equal to 135% of Dr. Ratio attack, and for each debuff the enemy has, the fixed chance of launching a follow-up attack increased by 20%. If the enemy died before launching a follow-up attack, the follow-up attack will be directed at a single random enemy instead. His first trace is, when Dr. Ratio uses his skill, for every debuff on the target, his crit rate increases by 2.5% and crit DMG by 5%. This effect can stack up to 6 times. His second trace is, when Dr. Ratio attacks an enemy with his skill, he has a 100% base chance to reduce the enemy's effect resistance by 10% for 2 turns. His last trace is, when dealing DMG to a target that has 3 or more debuffs, for each debuff the target has, the DMG dealt by drive ratio to this target increases by 10%, up to a maximum increase of 50%. Okay, that's all for his kit. Now let's talk about his best F2P light cone. The first best light cone is Cruising in the Stellar Sea, which you can get from Here to Store in the simulated universe. Its S5 can give you a decent crit rate and attack buff. If you don't have enough Here to bond to exchange for the free 5-star light cone, you can use only Silence Remains, which will give you the same buffs as Cruising in the Stellar Sea. Subscribe for more is also an option, since it will also give you an extra attack buff. For the relic, you can use the 4-piece Wastelander of Banditry Desert set, which will give you extra imaginary damage, crit rate, and crit damage. If you don't have the Wastelander of Banditry Desert artifact set, then the Ash Blazing Grand Duke is also an option, since it will buff Dr. Ratio's follow-up attack. For the Planar Sphere and Link Rope set, you can use either Space Stealing Station or Inert Salsado. These 2 artifact sets can increase Dr. Ratio's attack and follow-up attack, respectively. However, you can also use other alternatives such as Firmament Frontline, Glamoth, Rudolin Arena, or Celestial Differentiator. These are the stats you need to focus on for the body. You can choose either crit rate or crit damage based on your final stats. For the feat, you can use speed or attack percent, and for the planar, you can opt for imaginary damage or attack percent. As for the link rope, you can choose between energy regen rate or attack percent. For the traces, you should prioritize his skill, ultimate, and talent first, then you can focus on his basic attack. In conclusion, Dr. Ratio is a good DPS when there is a debuffer. Since his damage relies heavily on debuffs, you really need to stack up those debuffs if you want to maximize Dr. Ratio's damage. But if you already meet those criteria, then Dr. Ratio is the best DPS character for your team. That's all from me, and I hope you guys have good luck pulling for him.